All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. Super excited about this podcast. I'm sitting with a gentleman who, him and I have had coffee countless times. He's a coach in the community. I'm a coach in the community. We have a lot of things that happen to align, and the way that we met each other is kind of wild. I mean, one day at Bigby, I saw your ears, and I was just like, "Oh, you wrestle?" And it started a conversation. It turns out you wrestled with one of my best fighters, Jackson Ross. Undefeated, upcoming amateur fighter. Shout out Jay Ross. We've just made a friendship since. And one of the things I want to vouch for before this podcast starts is this gentleman years ago was saying to me, these are the things that I'm going to do. This is the path that I'm on. This is what I'm working towards. And I meet a lot of people that say things and they make proclamations. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But then somewhere along the way, they lose motivation or they don't have consistency or they don't see the results right away and they give up on themselves. And man, I've watched you just relentlessly pursue exactly what you said you were going to do from the very beginning. And it's just made my respect for you grow more and more and more. I mean, we kind of got along right off the bat. But it's like those are the type of people you can really connect with because you go like, that's a hard worker. That's someone that's going to build something of substance. That's someone that's going to add value to this community. So without further ado, for the people that don't know Matt Santos, I'm going to let him introduce himself. Let's start the podcast this way. Where were you born and raised? What were you like as a kid? What were the things that were really influential to you? What were the pulls that you had towards the future? And then we'll slowly start to build the story to where you are today.
Yeah. So, raised in Pink County, Michigan, small area, north of Saginaw, I'm more of a popular city, I guess. But as a kid, quiet, which is hard to believe becoming a coach because kind of the complete opposite, right? Kind of a process for me to kind of get out of my shell, right? But quiet kid, kept to myself. Parents went around a lot. Two older brothers. We're all 4 years apart, right? So one's 4 years older than me, and the other one's 8 years older than me. So, they weren't really around as well, right? So a lot of me time, good imagination as a kid, I guess. But started wrestling when I was 4 because my oldest brother hopped in there, and that's kind of where wrestling started in my life. But fast forward a little bit, started getting a little bit better, and at some point, my mom realized, okay, like, this is something, right? I was in 7th grade, and, all the coaches at Pink County were telling my mom, like, look, you got to take him out of here. He's teaching, practices, better than that we are, right? We moved to Saginaw, and then from there, kind of met some people and decided for me to go to Swan Valley High School and from there, had some good success and wrestled at Michigan State for a little bit. I don't know. How much more do you want me to?
No, that's a phenomenal start. Let's go a little bit further into a question that might be obvious to you, but might not be obvious to a lot of other people. What did wrestling do for you? Well, I mean, what was it about wrestling that hooked you and built you as a young man? I mean, people that have never wrestled or that have never grappled, they've never done martial arts, they don't understand how much it is influential to you and how much it can shape you. What were you like before wrestling? What did wrestling do for you? And then what would you say, like if someone said to you, why should my kid wrestle?
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. I appreciate that. Wrestling's everything to me. I know when I was kind of going through college, it was hard for me to kind of process what life was going to be after wrestling because it's the only thing I knew. You know what I mean? I started at 4 years old, and like I said, not having a lot of support from family and whatnot. That was the only thing that I cared about. You know what I mean? So. Almost obsessive, you know what I mean? Like just constantly watching film, always wanted to work out, always wanted to practice, always wanted to do something with the sport, right? Being shy, it helped me kind of create those friends. I remember some of my best friends, through my childhood, they were because of wrestling, like nowhere near the same area. But we all hung out with each other because we went to the same tournaments and we traveled the state and the country together. And once in a while, we would hang out with each other at our houses, right? But most of the time, it was just us going to tournaments, but they were by far my best friends, right? but helped me get out of my shell, helped me create those friendships, helped me gain that confidence. Wrestling is one of the best. You would know better than me, but I would say combat sport in general is going to be something that is going to give you the life lessons that you need to be successful. And it's one of the, fast forwarding, it's one of the biggest things that I focus on as a coach, to make sure I'm giving those life lessons, because wrestling, it presents it, right? But I need to make it obvious to my guys of, hey, this is what we're going through, and this is why it's important, right? I know it's tough, but life is tough, you know what I mean? So, no, wrestling is it's literally everything to me, and I'm grateful now that it's a career for me, and I get to keep it in my life, so.
It was awesome to hear that when you said wrestling's everything to me. And now here you are sitting with a Cleary University wrestling jacket on, and you are leading a wrestling program in our community and trying to take kids to the next level through the sport that changed your life. I mean, what more can you ask for out of life? Like, when you find something you're passionate about that can enhance your life, that you can somehow make a career through in a way that you can affect your community positively, it's like the perfect alignment of different things that we should seek as human beings. Were your brothers really successful wrestlers, so you saw them winning and dominating and pouring their heart into the sport, and that kind of pulled you up? Or were you kind of the one that took wrestling to another level?
Yeah, no. Oldest brother, he wrestled. He was awful. The middle child, right? He wrestled for probably a week, but he sorry if he sees this, but he was, I don't think he was strong enough for it. He became a basketball player, so that was his sport. But no, the biggest thing that it just made me around the sport, right? And, I enjoyed it. I had fun. So as a kid, obviously, you don't really pay attention with the wins and losses and anything like that, right? It was more of, oh, I'm going somewhere, I'm playing with some kids, and, I'm just having a good time, right? It wasn't until probably fifth grade where I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this serious, right? I actually care of the winning and losing now, and I'm gonna do what it takes to be successful, right? That's kind of when I started to get some better coaching as well. So around Pink County, Bay City's right next to it, and in the area there's a kid named Lincoln Olson. He ended up being a 4-time state champ for Davison, but me and my neighbor, we used to go there and train with him, and that was kind of the first high level coaching I received was from Lincoln and his dad. But it was me, my neighbor, and Lincoln would just beat the crap out of each other, right? And then after that, I wrestled for Clio Youth Club. They just really good youth program. Still is a really good youth program. Really good coaching there as far as for being at the youth level, but also the partners that they had at the time. I don't really know what they have going on now, but they did a fantastic job at getting me exposed to higher level wrestling, right? Before, so there's 3 organizations when it comes to youth wrestling in Michigan. There's NEMWA, My Way, and MMWA. I had no idea about 2 of them, right? I was only wrestling NEMWA at the time. So yeah, it's from there, Clio kind of got me exposed to different organizations. And then at some point, I wanted to figure out how I can get exposed to kind of like the national scene. In 7th grade, I was invited to actually my high school. They used to have like these summer duels or whatever. It was more of just like, hey, come in, step on a scale, you find someone that's around your weight, and it was more of just practice than anything else. But it was all matches, right? So as a 7th grader going to, it's all high schoolers. I hopped in there and started wrestling pretty. Everyone there beat the crap out of some people. High schoolers or high school coaches were trying to get me to go to their school. And then I beat this kid that ended up being like a 2-time state champ. He might have been already in high school and already state when I had a state title. And that's when a guy named Darren Wass kind of came to me and told me like, hey, like, where are you coming from? Like, who are you? and told him, like, just got to the area. It's when I first moved to Saginaw, and we had no idea where I was going to go, right? But after meeting him, I finally got the opportunity to go to my first national tournament, which was the Virginia Beach Duels, and went there. We had a crazy team, but yeah, and that was kind of like my first exposure to the national scene, and ever since then, Darren was the guy that I stuck with. I'm a pretty loyal person. I didn't wrestle for a single, other person throughout my entire middle school, high school career. It was him. He's done so much for me. As far as like the support, like my mom did a lot for me as far as like getting me to different coaches and making the move to get me, because we knew that wrestling was gonna be a thing, but the finances weren't there, right? So Darren did a fantastic job at kind of taking on the role of helping me, get exposed at the national scene, because he knew that it was going to be needed for me to, have any type of success at going to a big school, right, for wrestling. But yeah, I know he took on a lot of, financial burdens for me, right? But no, it's super, super grateful for him. He's done so much, and he's still someone that I call today, chit chat, talk about wrestling. Throughout my entire college career, I helped him with like travel teams and stuff too. But no, sorry, I kind of went on. But my
I can tell the gratitude that you have for that, man, and that's really cool to see, because as a coach, you know this very well. You give a lot of your time and effort. You're dumping all of your time and effort into other people, and knowing that someone appreciates you and is thankful for you and has gratitude for you and that time and effort that you spent means a lot to a coach. I guarantee you, if Darren listens to that podcast, it's going to be evident that, like, man, like, this kid really remembers and appreciates that time and effort that I put in. And maybe he was a pivotal reason you are the man that you are today. Without Darren in the picture, who knows if you do as well as you did in high school? Who knows if then you get into Michigan State? I mean, a lot of doors can open just because of one person helping you to, level up a little bit in your life.
Yeah. No, I was actually at the state tournament last year, and I was hanging out with some people from my high school, and I was telling them that Darren's the reason why I was able to get to a big school, right? I mean, wrestling as a whole is the reason why I didn't go down a whole path of bad decisions in my life. But Darren's 100% was that father figure for me. I love my dad, and but he wasn't around, right? Like, mom was off working a lot, and my dad was hanging out with his friends, right? So when I decided to move, and the only thing that was on my mind, especially after moving, it was all wrestling. When we first moved, I didn't know anyone. I didn't care to know anyone. It was train, right? But no, Darren was that guy that he would come pick me up for practice, get there early, stay after. His son, Darius, my entire 8th grade, year was go to practice an hour early, get my butt kicked by Darius, which was at the time he was wrestling for a D1 school, right? Go through the practice, stay another hour after, get my butt kicked by Darius, right? And both of them were there the whole time with that support, right? At some point, I lived at multiple different places and houses and whatnot, but at some point I was living with them, right? So for them, I mean, the entire family, Darren's wife, Gloria, for her to kind of take me in as well, just some random kid, and not really, to not say a second thing about it, you know what I mean? Super, super grateful. But 100% he's the reason, I would say, of why I got to the place I got to, right?
That's incredible, man. And like you said, that family to just like open their arms and say like, yeah, you can stay here. We see the passion you have, and like, you're welcome. Those are good people. You don't find a ton of people like that in the world that are willing to, like, open the doors to their home to someone else that, maybe needs a little leg up or needs an opportunity to really bring out the person that they have the potential of being. That's amazing to hear. I don't know if you want to go into this a little bit, and we don't have to go far into it, but what was your family dynamic like, where it sounds like, you know, was your family relocating just for your wrestling? Was this you leaving your house and living with other people? What were you dealing with, if you don't mind saying? A lot of the kids that you work with, the reason I'm going down this direction, man, they come from damage. They come from destruction. They come from broken homes. They come from, all kind of problems in their life. And like that type of shit can shape you and be an anchor and pull you down and make you sink. Or you can say, despite all those things, I'm going to be successful regardless. And a lot of times you have more grit, resiliency. You have characteristics that people that maybe had an easier life do not have. And at the end of the day, it can be probably one of your greatest assets one day if you can reshape those negative experiences into a fuel or something that drives you forward. Do you mind talking a little bit about like what the family dynamic was like that you were dealing with on the side?
Yeah. One thing I know for sure is at this point in my life, I've gone through it. I processed it. So I have no problem kind of digging deeper. So at young age, before moving, there was always a lot of violence as far as arguments, stuff like that. My mom and dad didn't have. They had a terrible relationship. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was pretty bad. But every single day, scream matches. I seen both my brothers fight my dad, and then moved to Saginaw, and that's kind of when. Moved to Saginaw, and that's when my mom kind of went down a whole different path as far as I would probably call it a midlife crisis, as far as like she wanted to get caught up in the party scene again. And this was probably the worst time for her to do that because when we first moved to Saginaw, we moved to like the ghetto side of Saginaw, right? So
Just your mom move, or your mom and your dad?
No. So my parents never legally separated, but when we moved, that was them separating, right? One of those situations. It's weird, but no. So it was just my mom and I moved. My oldest brother, he was already out of the house at this point, and then the middle child, he ended up living with his girlfriend's stepdad, right? He stayed up in Pink County. So it's like they just completely forgot about him, right? But no, my mom and I move. She gets caught up in the party scene. I was left at home a lot, just by myself. Again, going back to wrestling, the reason why it's everything I know and the only thing I care about is that's the only thing I really had in my life at that point. You know what I mean? She got caught up with, getting with different people and stuff like that. So there was a number of different guys in the house at the time when I'm living in Saginaw. And then at some point, she got with a boyfriend that they were with each other for a couple of years, right? He actually moved in probably worse than what it was with my dad as far as the violence. Same thing as far as arguments, but there was a lot of hands-on with this guy. He was caught up with a few different things in the Saginaw area as well. And at some point early in my high school career, my house actually got shut up. And that's kind of when I moved in with Darren, the guy the club coach that helped me out a lot. But yeah,
what in the world is that like? I'm sorry to interrupt you. You said your house just got shot up. You got violence happening there all the time. You have a strange man. I mean, I know that like stepfathers can come into the picture, boyfriends of your mom, but like you have strange men coming in your house. Your house is in chaos. There's all of this. I don't know how you didn't self-destruct. The fact that you didn't throw yourself down a pathway of drugs or just an escape from the realities of what you were going through. What is that like? Like, how were you able to keep a sane mind? How did you, did everything just pour into wrestling? Like, I'm just going to dive all in on this experience to kind of get out of what I was dealing with. I'm just fascinated by it, man, especially by the man that you are today, because you are a man of strong moral code, of you care about ethics and honesty, and you're just a good human being despite coming from a situation that would have destroyed many people.
Yeah. So one thing I'm grateful for, at a young age, I was able to tell like what was good and what was bad, right? So my oldest brother, he was kind of he was kind of a fuck up, right? So he made a lot of bad decisions, but so, at a very young age, again, I'm talking, 7, 8 years old, I'm seeing him do some bad things all the way through his high school career. I was able to kind of see, okay, like, I don't want to do that, right? Seeing how my mom and dad, their relationship was, I knew at a young age, again, I don't want that. I knew at a young age that, I wanted to change my family tree to get out of this whole situation, right? Um,
These things were just inherent in you, like there was not like a grandfather or somebody that had such a powerful impact on these things were inherent. You were looking at the situations of your life and the consequences of people's actions, and you were flat out saying, I'm not going to be like that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what caused it. I'm a religious man, so I like to think that I had God on my side throughout this whole process, right? But as far as going through the whole process and not going down a bad lane, wrestling's 100% where my energy went to. The anger, all that stuff. That's 100% where it went to. The focus, not getting caught up in anything that was bad. As far as like drugs and alcohol, I saw my dad, brother, it get caught up with a bunch of stuff. My mom at some point, my like bad stuff, right? Like my yeah, I'm not gonna go down too much, right? But there's addiction caught up in my family, right? But again, at a young age, I knew, all right, I'm not even gonna touch this stuff, right? People, college especially, high school a little bit, but people always gave me shit for, why don't you hang out with us? Why don't you go party? Blah blah blah. People don't understand the things that I've seen in my life that kind of make me realize I don't want to touch it. That like, I don't need it, right? I don't know, but wrestling is 100% the thing that kind of kept me out of everything negative in my life, right? Wrestling is the thing that put the right people in my life that launched me into where I am today, right?
Let's talk about you move in with Darren, and
Yeah.
his wife welcomes you. You've got a training partner and his son who sounds like he was a very good wrestler. Now you actually have a family unit. You see what a family is supposed to be like. It's probably so foreign to you from what you grew up in compared to what you're witnessing. Did it almost feel like home? Like, man, this is more of how it's supposed to be? Or were you so detached and just dialed in on like, I'm here to wrestle. I'm using this as an opportunity. Just kind of go a little bit further into that. And then what did that start to do for your career? Because now all of a sudden you're getting to a better program. You're around better coaching. You're around a higher level wrestler. You're kind of funneling all of your focus into something. And it sounds like the results started to add up for you at that point. And then how does that kind of change the trajectory of your life?
Yeah. As far as the home part, I'm honestly not sure if I ever felt that home feeling until, man, probably until I met my fiance and her and I moved with each other. But I remember always feeling in like that fight or flight moment, like that survival instinct. Going my entire growing up, middle school, going throughout high school. When I first
Was it chaotic at the house with Darren and them, or was it just
no.
because you felt like, this isn't really my home?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? And I mean, as soon as I got my driver's license, I instantly moved out, right? So when I first got my driver's license, I moved in with a teammate of mine, the Bots, Jared, Julie. I love them. I don't talk to them much, but the same thing. They took me in. When I moved in with Darren, yeah, there wasn't nothing negative, right? They're also another big reason why I kept the religion that I have now, because they're a pretty religious family. Grateful for that as well. But no, it was more of exactly what you said. Like, I knew this isn't my family. I knew that, all right, this is my coach. Honestly, even Darius, even though him and I have a really good relationship and we're more friends, I kind of knew, okay, he's still my coach as well. You know what I mean? Same thing, I lived with another coach at some point, and, I still wasn't home, right? I knew I was a little safer, right? But it wasn't necessarily, I was still stuck in that fight or flight, right? It would, I think there was a big moment in my career where, when I got to college and I realized, okay, I'm not really connected with anyone now, and I know there's not, you know, danger around me. I think that's kind of when the fight or flight kind of disappeared. And it was weird though, because it was almost like I used the fight or flight to help me as a competitor growing up, right? Which is my entire career until I got to college. And then in college, I kind of had to teach myself to get that switch as all right, now it's time to fight, right? It was a weird process for me. And it's something that I would love, I wish I did at least. I would love to sit down with a sports psychologist to kind of dive deeper as far as, if this is even correct, right? This is kind of just me thinking on my own career. But yeah, 'cause it was throughout college, it was hard for me to kind of get back to that same competitor. You know what I mean?
I have the identical thing from my story. So when you speak it, like when I was first a competitor and a fighter and doing jiu-jitsu and, I would fight at a bonfire or in a cage. It didn't matter to me. I would fight anyone, wherever, because I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of depression. I had a lot of things that wanted to get out of my soul, right? And I needed a channel for that. I needed something to focus into that. Well, physical combat is like, I don't know. For me, it's innate, and I think for you, it's probably innate. There's a way to release those type of emotions through those type of difficult experiences, what I'm trying to say. So it was almost like I had this massive chip on my shoulder, and the more that I would compete and fight and, push through these barriers, eventually that chip started to like dwindle down. And as my life got better and better and better, and all of a sudden I was training a team of people around me, and I could look in the mirror and I was happy and I was at peace in my mind, which took many, many, many years. It was like the switch that I always relied on, which normally was just stuck on, was like I only had one way to kind of operate. It just wasn't there, man. Like it was like that tank ran completely empty. I changed my life through that vessel, through those avenues. But then when it was time to like, all right, I got to be that same killer, that was fueled by all of this anger and frustration and helplessness and all of these things that I no longer feel. And it's like I did not take the time to sit down and process. Like I really wish I would have met like a sports psychologist or someone, or maybe even conversations with like-minded people like this and map out like, do you need those things to be successful? Are you giving yourself a crutch and flat out saying like, without that part of my behavior or psychology, I'm not going to be able to be the competitor that I once was. I don't believe that now, but I'm just too old. I'm 36. But when I look at myself now, I understand that a much more developed psyche that is able to take both from the difficult and from the darkness and from the light combined together is a far more successful human being, athlete, and everything. It's just you have to recognize that shift. Otherwise, one day you're going to call upon a tank for fuel and motivation and energy, and it's going to be empty. And you're going to walk out not feeling like yourself, feeling like something's wrong, and you're going to disappoint yourself. And I've had those moments. I'll give you a really quick one on the podcast because I think you'll appreciate this. I don't know if I ever told you this story. When I first started my MMA career, I didn't even want to be a professional fighter. I didn't care about that. I just wanted to fight people. That was my goal. Because MMA was too new. There was UFC, but no one around me was in the UFC, or I didn't even think that was a pathway. Right. So it was just kind of like, I'm just going to fight for fun and whatever it ends up, period. And I initially wrote down 3 goals. I wanted to turn pro, I wanted to fight for a title, and I wanted to fight in Brazil. And as a kid training in a basement, teaching his friends martial arts, those are pretty outlandish goals. I want to become a professional athlete. I want to fight for a pro title, and I want to fight in the country of Brazil. I'm training in a basement in Fowlerville, okay, with no coach. So these are astronomical goals that for most people, you probably wouldn't hit them so they can be pulled forever. I turned professional. I fought in an international 8-man tournament for a world title for XFC. So people from all over the world, dudes with 6, 8, 10 times the amount of fights as me. And I made it to the finale where I'm fighting in Brazil for the 3rd time, now for a title as a professional fighter. And I'm telling you right now, walking out to that championship fight against a guy who's an absolute monster. I mean, I'm not trying to discredit the man at all. Was the emptiest I had ever felt as a fighter by a landslide. I walked out to the cage so calm, happy, grateful. My entire career up to that point, Matt, there was an anger, a frustration, a dark side, let's call it. Like it was, I would flip a switch and I was like, I'm going to decimate the person in front of me because I'm striving back against what I want out of this world. I'm not what the world has done to me. I'm what I'm capable of being. And I remember walking out to that title fight in the finale, and I'm on posters in Brazil. I was just in their Hedgie TV headquarters. I'm on TV. I'm getting interviewed everywhere. I walked out to that cage so flat. I'm looking at all the people's faces as I'm walking out. I was overwhelmed with joy about to get into a cage fight with a dude that grew up in the favelas that wants to take my head off. And it was the emptiest I had ever been in a fight. And not a lot of people will understand that. But when I was just listening to your story, that's exactly what happened. It was time to turn the switch. They announced, James Gray out of this corner, Daniel Virginia out of this corner. And I had nothing in my heart. I had nothing in my soul. I had no fight in me that day at all when the fight started. And the crazy thing is, I had still tried to attack the man. This dude's an absolute monster. I still take him down. I run through him like a hot knife through butter with my jiu-jitsu. I end up mounting this guy. I've never said this on a podcast, and this is going to be a big revelation, but I run through this guy like a hot knife through butter. I take him down. He feels just as helpless underneath me as everyone I had fought up to that point. I go for my arm bar, which is, I've submitted countless good people. I've tapped really great black belts. I don't even know how many arm bars I have in MMA. I throw the arm bar, and to the day I die, I need to analyze this moment because I don't understand it. As soon as I got to the arm bar, Matt, I just wanted the fight to be done. I didn't want to struggle anymore. It was like, you got to remember, the young kid who's self-taught, who's trained in a basement, said, I want to accomplish 3 things. I want to fight for a pro title. I want to fight in Brazil. I want to be a professional athlete. In that moment, something in my soul was just like, enough struggle. And I grabbed his arm like a child trying to pull a toy. No technical ability at all. This is the part that I've never said. Like, man, if you would have asked me at that time, if you would ask one of my training partners like Brian, like, how does James finish an armbar? So technical, crisp, clean. If I get to that situation on almost anybody, I'm finishing it. My finishing rate is through the roof. I grabbed his arm, like, give me this. And he just hit the most basic escape in the world, which is called a hitchhiker escape because of the garbage that I did. He rolled right out, ended up getting back to his feet, threw his hands in the air, and I had nothing. I looked at this man. I barely put my hands up. He threw an absolute bomb of an overhand, hit me in the head. I dropped down to the ground. I covered up. He hammer fisted me. They stopped the fight, and it was over. Wow. To this day, I mean, I think I understand the moment based on what we're describing right now. I have never been more empty with no fight in my soul at all as I was in the moment where I was about to accomplish everything I said I ever wanted to do with combat. It was almost like there was a fear on the other side of that of what struggle could be ahead or maybe it was just my brain of all those years, I wouldn't give it peace.
Right.
There was no rest. There was no I was good enough. There was no contentment with myself. It was only you're not enough. You need to do more. You need to be this. And in that moment, that tank said, you got nothing. Yep. And then to end my career like that, that is how I ended my career. I took one more fight after that I got talked into by Sean Shelby, UFC matchmaker, was basically like, hey, take this fight on UFC Contender. We have this guy, Kyler Phillips, who's an absolute animal. He's like top 15 in the world right now. I think he's like 8-1 in the UFC. Like he's killing everybody. Anyway, and I basically was like, all right, I'll do it. My life was in chaos at that point. I had just gone through a breakup. My number one training partner had just moved to California. I should not have done it. And I was like, you know what? When I show up here, it's UFC. Like that fire will be back. Complete empty tank. And I think knowing things like this earlier on as coaches is so crucial because we're going to be able to help other men and women that will experience this. If you have a kid that has come through hell or the darkness that relies on that chip in his shoulder, and you start bettering this kid's life and he starts winning, he starts being happy, he starts having a beautiful girlfriend by his side, his life starts going really well, fight or flight leaves him, and he doesn't know how to make this adjustment. He doesn't know how to shift to like, having a competitive nature, or wanting to make it about legacy, or like not making it about like this violent, it's got to be the struggle. It's just a competition. It's a game. You're going to go out there and do something you love. I didn't make those switches, and it was the most empty I've ever been as a competitor ever. And no one has brought that conversation out in me until this point in this podcast, because what you were describing is exactly what I went through to a T. And I'd still love to sit down with a sports psychologist one day and fully map out that moment so that I can be a better coach. My time is in the past, but hopefully I can help a lot of people through that. So sorry, that was a massive tangent off the topic, but it's as one man who understands what you went through. Not exactly, but our stories don't need to align exactly. A soul that has struggled for long enough that finally wants peace, you're not going to be able to tap back into and say, no, give me the hatred and anger and all these dark energies to get me through this moment. It's not going to be there, man. So I want you to talk about, you're in high school now, you're with a better program now, you're with better people now, you've had a lot of the chaos in your life, you have that mat still. I want you to talk about your high school career, how that went. When did you know you were going to go to Michigan State University, and like how big of an impact that made on you? And then if you want to talk any more into how you switched from that fight or flight mat to the mat, in college, or did you not make that switch very well? I think that is such an important part of this podcast as two coaches that, our job is to try to give as much information as possible to make the people around us more successful than we were or could have been.
Yeah. Going through high school, I saw success right away. I was never caught up with the winning and losing or anything like that. I still had that fight or flight, even though I was away from like the violence. Like I said, because I was living with different people, I never felt at home, right? So I think that that survival instinct was still there, right? So that I still was depending on that throughout my entire high school career. Still had a lot of anger. I never really dealt with it. I always kind of just like put it to the side, right? But right away, state finalist as a freshman, instantly was put on the map as far as, all right, this kid's legit, as far as like the guys that do the rankings and stuff like that. Sophomore year, I was, by far the favorite. I actually went to team states and beat the number one guy at the weight class below me and the number one guy at the weight class above me at the same weekend, right? Went to the state tournament, and the state tournament is kind of where I found another issue with my wrestling. I would do fantastic with all these other tournaments, and then state tournament would come and I would instantly put more pressure on myself and kind of shut down, right? So ended up not winning a state title that year, won it my junior year. My junior year is probably when I knew I was going to go to a D1 school.
What changes happened, or what things changed in you for your junior year?
So changes in me is tough to say. As far as my training, I would say my high school coach, Justin Brandel, he's the head coach at Swan Valley now. He hopped in, he wrestled at Eastern Michigan, and he hopped in and he started helping out Swan Valley, right? And him and we did a lot of one-on-one personal workouts throughout the summertime. I would probably say that was the biggest thing that switched. That fight or flight was still the thing I was depending on, right? And that was still the only thing that made me a competitor. So that was still there, but the training was different, right? It became a little more technical. It wasn't just straight up a fight anymore, right? But I won a state title my junior year, and then that summer rolling into my senior year, I beat Grappler Fall Classics, the bigger wrestling tournament here in Michigan. I beat a guy that was like ranked 15. I think I beat another ranked guy at that tournament too. It was a fantastic tournament for me, right? So I was just riding that that confidence train, the success train. And then that's kind of when I started capturing the eye of the Big Ten schools, right? And then finally, Michigan State popped up. And for me, it came down to like Michigan State and Campbell University, which is in North Carolina. And then kind of look at the pros and cons. My biggest thing, like I said before, at a young age, my mom and I knew that wrestling was going to be the thing that got me to school. I didn't give a shit about a national title. I didn't care about anything else. It was, I need to get to school, right? And obviously that was the big goal. So when it came down to the top 2 schools, it was all money, right? And whoever was giving me the most money, that was the place I was going to go. And then obviously, Eagle comes into play too, because Michigan State, it's a Big Ten school. Big Ten is by far the best conference when it comes to wrestling, not even close. So yeah, that was a big reason for me as well. So, but yeah, ended up picking Michigan State. Went through my senior year, same thing, completely demolished everyone. State tournament comes up, put too much pressure on myself, ended up not winning a state title. But at the time, going through my senior year, I was ranked, I think the highest I got was like 13th in the country. So, yeah. And then going to Michigan State, it was same idea. It's weird because going to Michigan State and taking care of myself, even though I was a broke college student, it was the easiest my life has been, right? So that's when that fight or flight left me, right? Was as soon as that I went to Michigan State and I was taking care of myself, I didn't, I didn't have any type of threat on me. And I knew that everything was taken care of, so as far as like, I was going to have my next meal, whatever, because I was taking care of myself, right? How
did that start to show up in your performances, or when did you start to notice, wait a second, something doesn't feel right?
I would say my second year. So my freshman year, I knew I was going to redshirt, right? That was a given thing. So I didn't really care about competitions that much. Looking back at it, as my true freshman year, I was still competing. 'Cause they brought in a lot of talented kids in my class. And I remember beating the crap out of everyone in the wrestling room. I'm talking guys that were top 10 in the country type of dudes. And I still had that competitor, right? When it comes to my redshirt freshman year, my second year in college, and I was actually going to represent the team, that's when I kind of saw, okay, there's a problem, right? I wasn't competing the same, overthinking a lot, too much pressure on myself. I didn't know how to be a competitor. Like, as weird as it sounds, I had no clue how to be a competitor. It was all that, like you said, that dark side, right? It was all that fight. That was the only reason I was big in being a competitor, right? So, my second year, honestly, it rolled through my entire college career. It's just I started to slowly start to understand how to be a competitor throughout my college career. Obviously, there's guys that they use their entire life to figure out how to be a competitor, right? And have that switch. I was trying to figure out going through high school or college, sorry. I had the technique, I had the athletic ability, but had no idea how to be a competitor. And I couldn't figure it out. And this is the dumb part for myself. I was trying to do it by myself. You know what I mean? Again, it might be an ego thing. But I didn't ask for help. The only time I asked for help is when I got super depressed my second year, right? And I went to the head coach at the time, and this is another reason why I'm super grateful and dedicated to Roger at Michigan State, because he sat there and he talked to me and he helped me out, and he got me the tools that I needed to get me through that dark period, right? Because everything... after getting out of the fight or flight mode, that's my second year in college, everything just came down to my shoulders. My entire youth, the shit that happened around me, the things I went through myself, like everything had crashed down. Similar to you, going through a breakup at that time as well. I'm sure that didn't help, but it just everything came crumbling down. I was like, fuck it, I'm done. You know what I mean? But he got me in front of the right people. There's a fantastic sports psych at Michigan State. Got in front of him. He helped me through the depressing stage, right? But I didn't take it the next step as far as, hey, how can I use this doctor to help me as a competitor. I never thought about it. I was too immature at the time, right? But I agree. One thing that you said, I'm a big believer that every single thing that I went through was to help me in the position I am today, right? I think there's a plan for me, and ultimately, I was supposed to be in this position right now, here at Cleary University in Howell. It's weird because I was actually talking to my fiance the other day. She's actually born and raised here in Howell, right? Her mom went to Cleary. Her grandpa went to Cleary. And I remember, I literally probably 2-3 days ago, I turned to her. I was like, "What are the odds of your mom and grandpa going to the school that I got a head coaching position straight out of college?" Right? The odds are just ridiculous, right? So is it unfortunate that my college career didn't go the way I wanted? Yeah, right. I wouldn't change a single thing though, right? Everything that I went through and experienced, again, I think ultimately it was to make me a better coach, right? So I can help my guys out. Because I'm sharing with them, if you're going through something, I'm here for you. If it gets bad, go talk to a psych. If it's getting to be a competitor, let's go get a sports psych, right? Don't be ashamed to talk about it, bring it up, and get through it. It's hard, man. It's hard, but I 100% wouldn't change a single thing.
Man, it's so good to hear you say those words too, because I feel the same exact way about my life. And I think all people that really do monumental things, they have to get to that point where they say, despite the pain or difficulty or darkness, I wouldn't change anything. Because if you change those things, you wouldn't be the person that you are today. And your ability to help is directly related to what you've gone through and how you see the world. Like your perception of the world and of people and potential and difficulty is shaped by what you've lived through. So it is like almost looking at like a divine plan. Like if you were going to create a world-class coach, well, what type of shit would they have to go through? Right. What type of darkness and difficulty would they have to face? What type of, recognizing what it is to be a competitor versus, using just that dark survival, fight or flight energy to be successful. You have to learn those things. Well, you can't learn those from a textbook. There's no book on earth that could teach people what, like, let's say we've learned based on our lived experiences. You have to endure those things. So it's almost in a way, I'm not as strong of a religious man as you are, but what I'll say is it is like a divine plan. And almost all of the best people I know in my life that really are on top of their things are very religious people. So it's like you need to view your life in a way of what I went through matters and will make me a better version of the man that's gonna make a difference for my team, for my community, for my family. And you radiate that type of energy. I want to ask you about one thing I think that is fascinating for the people that listen is your life was a lot of hell growing up. There was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of pain. There was a lot of difficulty. But you almost became hardened by it and adjusted to it, and it was just your life, and you poured yourself into wrestling. Then you get to college, and all of a sudden you're you're taking care of yourself. You're on top of your things. That fight or flight starts to go away. You fall into a depression because of it. What helped pull you out of that depression? What was it about the conversations? Do you remember specific things or like light switch moments or perspectives that got healed? Because those are the dark moments that if people can turn those moments into strength, that is what sets you free. It's like all the chains of the past, all the damage gets cut and you are just the product of the lessons. But those chains are hard to break, man. And some people don't ever break them. Some people stay in their broken state forever. Do you remember what it was that really started to set you free from the depression period?
I mean, I think there was a few things. My best friend in college, Julian, still my best friend. He lives in Hawaii now, but he was always there. He was my roommate in college, and then when I kind of started to kind of go down, he was still right there in my corner, right? I think the biggest thing that helped me was getting help, though, talking to a psychologist, because ultimately talking to the psychologist, that helped me get the medication that I needed to kind of help me get out of that depression state, right? But I think that another big thing to actually eliminate depression as a whole was ultimately meeting my fiance. It was around that time, right? So, and going through like I said before, I went through a breakup, right? I gave myself time on purpose. Like my fiance now, her and I were friends for a while, right? 'Cause I purposely did not pursue anything because I was like, fuck that. I'm not getting caught up in that again. I'm already dealing with a lot right now, not doing it, right? But ultimately, I was like, at some point, we're probably 2 years into being friends now, right? I was like, I think this is something to go for, right? But yeah, meeting her was a big reason. Which is weird because her and I met at a tropical smoothie, right? And we're both working there. She was technically my boss, but it was like going through being a D1 athlete. It was like, fuck it, I want to go get some hours in at work just so I can hang out with this girl. And the amount of sleep that I lost is probably too much, but worth it. I would say just the support system that I had, getting the help that was needed. I think that's probably the biggest thing that got me out of that state, though.
That makes sense, man. You had a loyal, deep friend, so friendship's crucial. You were able to reframe perspectives, which is what a great therapist or sports psychologist do. You were given a little bit of medication to kind of get you over the hump while you process all these things. And you found someone that loved you. And like love it shapes the world. Not to go off on a whole different tangent, but when you got somebody that has got your back, that believes in you, that says like, you matter, go make a difference, that can pick you up from the pits of hell and make you go, maybe I do, maybe I can, maybe I can't fully fight for just myself right now, but I could fight for this woman. Yeah. I could fight for my family. I could fight for a future. And then if you use that to tap into purpose, like all those things have to align back to then purpose. And then it becomes sustainable. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it can be a flash in the pan. It can be short-lived. She got you back on your feet, it sounds like. And then you started becoming the man that you were meant to be. And that probably inspires her, and it keeps the whole thing moving forward. It's amazing to hear, and I think it's so important for us to talk about these things because your athletes are going to go through this for sure. So are mine. You know what I mean? While we're having this conversation, I'm identifying people that I know in my head right now that, like, you know what? They're kind of on the borderline of switching from that. Most of life has been fight or flight, has been chaos. They've experienced a ton of success. They're pretty happy with a lot of things right now. I need to sit down and have these conversations and make sure that they're starting to learn how to be a competitor versus just be a fighter. Like, that's a good way to look at it. I want you to speak on the idea of being a competitor. When you were lightly, throwing out, I had to learn how to be a competitor, I realized I hadn't been a competitor my whole life. I saw other people that if they didn't have all that hell in the life, they were just learning to compete because they didn't have something that was driving them, chasing them out of their home to go to a practice. They just had to learn what it was to just show up and be a competitor. I want you to just lay as much information or knowledge as you can on that topic. Like if you could speak to every one of your Cleary people or everyone you'll ever work with, what did you learn about what it is to be a competitor and not have to rely on those emotions?
Oh man, I tried everything, dude. Around the same time I was going through this, Michigan State worked with some company to kind of help with mindset, right? And they talked about a bunch of different stuff, right? So I kind of took that and to kind of help guide me. But I tried, happy music before competing. I tried dancing before competing. I tried aggressive music before competing. The biggest thing that ultimately kind of got me to be a little bit better about being a competitor was just having a routine. And this is probably the biggest thing that I share with my guys now. Like my routine going through my last 2 years at MSU, it was freaking consistent, right? Going to a duel, I would have a little bit after weigh-ins. I would go out with a t-shirt, shorts on, no sweats. I would just go jog back and forth, shuffle, get some sprints in. Once I kind of felt my core temperature kind of getting a little warm, right? I would go on the stage. Michigan State has a stage. If you guys haven't been to an MSU duel, highly recommend that. But they have a stage. Go on the stage, do a little stance of motion, get some foot fire in, get my feet moving, get legs feeling good. And then once I really had a sweat going, then I would go get my warm-ups on. And I still don't know if I figured out what music is actually good for me. Because, I tried everything, dude. Like, I'm literally talking freaking, like, Taylor Swift to hip-hop to rock music. I don't really know what what type of vibe is good for me going to a competition. But as far as getting my body ready, I 100% got that down, right? I do believe that as a competitor, I don't think I figured out exactly what works for me on the mindset part. But the biggest thing I share with my guys is find a routine for yourself, right? Find a routine for yourself, and then I actually work with a psychologist at Cleary that he comes in and he talks to my guys as far as giving my guys more tools on how to prepare yourself mentally and how to deal with different situations, as far as breathing exercises, whatever, to kind of help them mentally. My biggest thing, I'm super, super big in options, right, on the coaching side, right? So if I can give them as many options that I can possible to help them with the mindset, and then also give them as many options as I can when it comes to their own routine and their own technique, and then have them kind of pick and choose what works for them, then, I think I'm doing my job correctly, right? But yeah, it's I kind of went through a process of trial and error to kind of figure out how to be a competitor. But I think it was a little too late for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking when I started to figure things out a little bit. I was already my last 2 years at Michigan State, right? And honestly, that last year it was an extra year because of COVID. So yeah, but it was a little bit of a process, but.
But again, thank God you've gone through that, because that makes you a much better coach now. It gives you much better perspective. If you would have just naturally had those things, you might discount how important it is to help your athletes get in the right mindset before a competition. It sounds like the biggest things you're trying to get people to rely on is like a routine that puts you into a familiar state so you can just trust that you're ready to go. And then at that point, you can just go be you. And like, it's super similar. It's funny to how we do things. We have a set warm up backstage because we know it's going to get you right on that verge of sweating. It's going to get the lungs opened up. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. And it's repeatable. They know it. Their brain doesn't have to overthink it. You're not developing any new techniques in the back. You're just getting ready for combat. And then to take it one step further, I think you just got to get back to the love of sport. I think hey, you can be somewhere else. Like, you don't have to be on this wrestling team. You don't have to be walking out in this competition. You could be sitting at home watching television, watching other people come out here and wrestle. You can go sit in the bleachers. Look at the people that are sitting up in the stands. Do you want that to be you? You just sit there and, and watch everybody else put themselves on the line. And if you can get people it's like you wrestle because you love wrestling. Or you're wrestling because it's good for you. But at the end of the day, like, if you go back to, I actually do want to be here. I just hate that feeling right before the expectations, the pressures I put on myself, thinking that I'm going to let my team down. You don't like that stuff. But if you could say, okay, you either have to get rid of it all or you have to embrace it all and go just be the wrestler you can be. You want to be on that stage. And I think getting our people to tap back into, you have to remember that. You're choosing to be here. You have to embrace all that comes with it, and you can only do what you can do. You can't control how your opponent's going to wrestle or fight you, but you can control you. You can't control a bunch of these factors, but you don't need to. You need to go out and execute your best. What is your A game? What is your backup when that fails? What are the things we've built in the lab, in the countless hours in the training room that you can trust, so that when they make a certain mistake, you capitalize on it. You don't have to overthink it. Just fire it. Go. Wrestle to win. Don't wrestle not to lose.
Yep.
That has to come from trusting yourself, man.
Yep.
So let's talk about the end of your college career, and then your transition over to Cleary University, and then when you first started out there as a coach, and then what you've kind of learned and progressed as you've gone.
Yeah. So, end of my career, my entire college career was pretty much the same. It didn't go the way I wanted. Had some decent wins, some close matches. My biggest issue, again, not being able to find that competitor. Like, I had 1-2 point matches with some of the best guys in the world. Literally people that are world champions now. But same thing my senior year. End up losing at Big Tens to a guy that was a couple-time All-American. Actually was in the vert. It's gonna eat me up for my rest of my life, right? The last college match for me, the guy gets a decent lead early, And then I start chipping away, takedown cut, takedown cut, takedown cut. And then at some point, my coach is, he's all hyped now. He's yelling. He's like, all right, keep going, keep going, keep going. Because I always had good, a good gas tank, right? I was always go, 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 go. And this guy was just crumbling. And at some point, I take a shot, got out of position stupidly on my part. Guy locks up a cradle and puts me away. I'm like, fuck. I sit there for a little bit. I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, well, that was that, right? One thing that after being a competitor for your entire life, I started at 4 years old, stopped wrestling on the competitive side at, 25, right? In literally a lifetime of wrestling. Something that's not talked about enough is the transition from being a competitor into being a regular dude. It's weird. It's hard. I remember thinking to myself, because people always looked at me like, oh, this kid likes to work out, right? He's always working out. He's always, people don't understand. I'm just a super goal-driven person. That's the only reason why I was working out, man. I remember going to lift at some point, looking at the barbell as I'm squatting and just thinking to myself, why the hell am I doing this? And I was yeah, I want to be in shape. I want to look good. I want to feel healthy, but it's I don't have to do super hard things anymore. And I was it was super, super hard for me. It took me months to actually get through that. And I would say coaching helped me kind of get out of that funk as well, because being a coach is the complete opposite of being a competitor, right? Being a competitor, you're pretty selfish, right? And you should be. But a coach is complete opposite. You would need to put all your focus and energy into your competitors. And again, it helped me, right? So I say that because when I became a coach, I got hired. So I graduated from Michigan State in May. I got hired as a head coach at Cleary University in June, right? So I had a couple weeks of a window of trying to figure out, okay, what the hell am I going to do with my life? I had a few options. I was thinking about doing some government stuff as far as I was a criminal justice major. I was thinking about being an assistant coach. And for the people that don't know, typically coaching and wrestling, you have to climb the ladder, right? You become a GA and then a part-time assistant, a full-time assistant, and then, at some point way down the road when a job opening comes available, you become a head coach, right? I skipped multiple steps, right? Again, ultimately, I think there was a plan for me. I think the things I went through were for me to get to the position I'm in today, because it's unheard of for, there's one other person I know that was hired straight out of college to be a head coach, right? But that going through all of that and going through the transition from being competitor to coach, I think throwing myself into the situation ultimately made me kind of get past that, that weird, transition as far as I don't know what the hell I'm doing with my life anymore, right? And I got to put all my focus and energy in that same goal-driven mentality into being a coach, right? Kind of what you were talking about before, I think of the goals I set for myself, similar to what you were saying before for yourself. They're pretty crazy, right? I remember walking into Cleary in my first month of being there. I'm telling people I'm gonna have 100 people on the roster. It's gonna be a big team. I'm gonna bring a fucking national title to the school. And everyone's looking at me like, who the hell is this kid, right? Literally 25 years old, taking over a college program, and I'm saying all this wild stuff. I have less than 10 guys on the roster. Every single person I'm talking to are like, who and what are you talking about? Can you just save the program first? Can we focus on that? Because that's where that's the state of the program. That's where it was when I took it over, man. Literally, it was on the verge of just all right.
I didn't even know they had a wrestling. I mean, it was so broken down, and I was like, Cleary has wrestling, no joke. It was in that bad of a state, and I'm right up the road, and I train fighters, and wrestlers make the best fighters. It was not even a thought on my mind that Cleary was a wrestling program.
Yeah, man. That's exactly where it was, and it's one of the first things that came to my mind when I finally got when I got the job. I looked at the roster, and I'm a Michigan guy through and through, born and raised, wrestled here in college. I know Michigan wrestling, right? And I know Livingston County has fantastic wrestling. And I remember looking at the roster. I'm like, there is one kid in the area that's on the team. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? You know what I mean? What am I throwing myself into, right? One thing that, some of my mentors told me was like, if you accept a challenge, like, you're good, and then you hop into it, right? But, like, you have to accept that, right? You have to. And I did. Like, when I looked at the roster, before I accepted the job, before I even applied, I was like, all right, this is going to be a shit show. But I was like, all right, screw it. I got it. I'm hopping in there, right? Instantly, exactly what you're talking about, I knew that I needed to fix the name of Cleary, right? The name of Cleary Wrestling specifically, and get the name out there. I remember getting the cheap shirts made. I'm talking probably 1,000 shirts. And I would go to these. So New Way, they have a bunch of national tournaments in Michigan. I remember going to those and just throwing shirts out, just randomly. Random kid, hey, take this. You know what I mean? Just random, just trying to get the logo, the name out there, man. It's been a process, right? But at the same time, I'm trying to recruit. Again, the state of the program when I first took it over, it was just save it first, right? I just need to get some kids here. So my net was huge. I remember talking to probably 300, 400, 500 kids that first recruiting class just because I needed to get people to the school. Otherwise, they're going to freaking shut it down, man. It had nothing to do with winning and losing, right? It was all about get people here first, otherwise you're done, right? So it's super hard to recruit kids to wrestle when they have no idea what's going to happen with the program, right? The last 2 years, so I had 2 recruiting classes now. The last 2 years has been nothing but a vision, right? So there's a post out there that we made, and I have a little quote on there that talked about like my recruiting class for this year, and I talk about how I'm grateful for my guys, right? And I mean that from the bottom of my heart because they really put a lot of trust in me to come to Cleary because there's nothing, right? There's no success, there's no history. They just believe in the vision that I was telling them and that where I'm going to take this program. It's not until now, right? This recruiting class I'm talking about now, and recruiting's so much easier now. But it's so much easier. But they can actually see the vision coming to life. They can see that we have some talent, right? They can see that we have a bigger coaching staff. It's the fact that people can see it happening. It's making everything. The ball is rolling. You know what I mean? The ball is rolling. But it's that first 2 years though it was a process, man, a complete process.
I want to talk to you about your belief because that's how I speak. I say outlandish shit. I train people in a basement and I say, one day we're going to have a mega facility in Livingston County that people from all over the world will travel to and we'll put people in the UFC.
Yeah.
That is outlandish. That's like, what? You're going to fail. That's stupid. You're wasting your time. You're crazy. I've had that belief forever, and that's probably why we're sitting in this studio right now and we're podcasting together. But that belief is not inherent in a lot of people. I don't find that in many people. I don't sit across from that many human beings that no matter what has happened to them in their life or no matter what it looks like, they go, I can take the pieces that are in front of me and build something incredible. That's one of the things I admire about you the most, and I really appreciate in you, is I see that same belief in you. In the very beginning of this podcast, you said you had a really strong imagination as a child.
Yeah.
For me, that my imagination is a big reason why I believe I'm able to create the things that I do, because I don't see things as they are. I see things as they could be. I don't see people as they are. I see people as they could be. I mean, I recognize the reality of the current, but that's just choices and decisions. Like who you are today is what you choose to be. If each day you got up and you chose to care a little bit more and fix your compass a little bit and structure your life a little bit better and make better decisions, you're going to be a vastly different person in 3 to 6 months. But where does that belief come from for you, man? Because it's rare. You walked into a dying program and started speaking in a way where I bet you most coaches look at you and go, yeah, right, he's not going to do any of those things. Because I dealt with all that, man. And it didn't make me falter at all. If anything, it strengthened. I said, wait until you see what is capable or what I'm going to create. Where does that come from for you, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to say where it comes from exactly, right? I think imagination has to do a lot with it. But again, I think it's just being a high goal driven person, right?
Yeah, but you're driven, but you believe in things. There's a lot of people that are driven, but they're not going to dump work ethic into something that they don't think is going to pay off. They don't have the belief. It's not your work ethic. It's not your being driven. It's not that you chase your goals, because a lot of people would chase goals that they believe in, but they don't believe that it's possible to create something of incredible substance that could provide purpose and passion. Your belief is the superpower. You don't give me more insight into that. It's not the fact that you're a goal driven, because if you were goal driven, you might look at Cleary and say, no, there's no potential here. It's not going to be shit. It's not going to grow. I'm going to find a different school that already has a legacy of wrestling. And then that's where I'm going to pour my energy. It's not that. It's your belief.
Right. I mean, I remember at some point thinking to myself, so as a competitor, right, going through college, you only have four competing years, right, typically, to accomplish your goals, right? I remember telling myself when I took over the program, I have a lifetime to accomplish what I need to do, right? And I'm not afraid of hard work, so I knew that I don't give a shit what's gonna happen, right? I was gonna pivot, figure it out, and continue to move forward, right? As far as believing, I mean, I remember at a young age telling myself, and this is back in grade school, I was telling myself, like, all right, I'm going to coach wrestling at some point, right? I don't know. I don't care what it is. At some point, I'm going to coach wrestling. I'm going to change my family tree. What causes that to kind of just come to place, it's tough for me to kind of figure out what it is exactly, right? The only thing, again, just being a religious person, I'm going to go back to, I think God's on my side, man. I think that was the plan for me from the start, and he was just putting little seeds in my freaking head as at a young age and telling me, like, all right, create high goals and you fucking do what it takes to make it happen, right? You want to change your family tree, all right? Now that's in your head, and that's in your head at a young age, right? Work hard, all right? Train your ass off at anything that you do, and that's in your head at a young age. And I kept that mentality with me since day one, and obviously taking over a program, I'm not going to just take over a program and just satisfy the school as far as, all right, bring students in and that's that, right? Fuck that. I want to bring in kids that's going to change this program. I want to take over the country. Livingston County, it's the best, in my opinion, the best wrestling community in Michigan, right? And the vision for me is, when we start becoming ranked in the country and we start becoming the best in the country, the people in this community, they're going to come around Cleary Wrestling and support us, right? There's absolutely no reason to me why we won't be able to fill an entire arena with fans, even at, being at an NAI level, you know what I mean? People love the sport, right? People love the sport, and if we can bring them the talent and the entertainment that they deserve, I think we're going to impress a lot of people. But no, I think if I had to pick one thing, it's probably just there was a plan for me at a young age, and it was implanted into me since day one, right? I think different things started to happen, and ultimately it was to get me to this point and continue to put get the process going as far as building this. I don't know. It's interesting, though. It is an interesting thought. I'm with it.
The pride you feel, man, for the work that you put in and the fact that you care about what you do so deeply. Like, wearing that Cleary University wrestling jacket, you're proud of that. You want to make that stand for something. You want that to be something that people look at and they go, that's Matt Santos's program, and those guys are doing incredible things over there. You have so much passion for it. It radiates out of you when you were just going over your plan and your story and your vision. And that's your superpower. like, don't ever forget these words I'm saying to you right now. If you maintain that authenticity and that energy and passion, you're going to stomp so many people in the world. Doesn't matter how far ahead of you they are right now. Doesn't matter if they have bigger budgets. You will open doors that flat out do not open for them because you are going to live in a different way. That type of energy is infectious to people. It reminds them of potential. It brings out the best from the depths in them. It will help them overcome obstacles of life that maybe have smacked us around, that will allow them to break through and be, versions of themselves that they're blown away by. And as soon as you start to create that and you start to use that energy as your superpower, it creates a magnetism. It's exactly what happened, why we went from a basement to what we have now. There's a magnetism in that. People want to be around winners. People want to be around real passion. People want to be around people that genuinely have changed their life for the better. And it becomes this magnetic pull. And it's not like a steady upward trend. It's like an explosive exponential growth. Right. The hard thing is you have to really regulate culture. You've got to really hold down standards. Your heart is going to get shattered by somebody really close to you. I can promise you that as a coach, where you will pour a ton of your heart and soul into somebody and something will happen and it'll shatter you. And there'll be moments where you might doubt yourself as a coach and you might doubt, like, that vision could get shaky. And if you can always go back to the Matt that just spoke the words that you did with the passion, belief, and no matter what the circumstances look like in front of me, that doesn't mean that I can't craft an unbelievable future with what I've been given, with what I've been dealt. That's your superpower, because that's exactly what I've used to be successful the way I am. And every time I get to a level, I go back to that passion. What can be done with where I am, with what I have, with my team, with the squad, with the energy, with the goals, with God, whatever you want to say, it's all together. It's all right there with you. How are we going to create the most substantial legacy possible? And like, I'm telling you what, when the camera's not on me when he's talking to the last part, I'm getting fired up on this side of the chair. I'm like, because this is Livingston County. This is our area. 100%. This is this pin on the map. I know this place is special. I don't know why. I've been all over. I travel all over the world. I've lived in multiple different homes. We've got some magic in this community. We have a sanctuary from a lot of chaos that's in most of the world. Right. And if you get good people to tap together and come together with passion and vision and goals, we are going to create a monumental headquarters of a spot where people go, damn, the amount of winners that come out of that tiny little marker, Howell and Brighton, Michigan, Heartland, Michigan, we're going to do it. Yeah. And so I was getting so pumped. Let's talk about one more thing. When you first started as a coach at Cleary, compared to where you are as you sit right now, what were the biggest changes that you've noticed? Were there any light switch moments as a coach? Were there any big heartbreaks? You went from a super small group of guys, which is easy to train one way, and there's some benefits of having very small groups, to you have a massive program now. Like anyone that saw pictures from your outdoor workout, it's phenomenal, but you're going to have to adjust. Just talk about that transition, and then let's paint forward thinking, like, tell me about this upcoming season. What you're thinking, what guys you got that you're fired, maybe not even particular people, but et cetera.
Yeah. As far as who I am as a coach, everything's changed. I'm a big believer that you need to continue to evolve and grow as an individual. So going into, my first season, everyone knew that I wasn't ready, right? I had mentors that were telling me, like, look, you're not ready, but you're going to pivot, you're going to learn, you're going to get through it, right? I knew enough about wrestling, right? I can teach someone wrestling. That's the easy part for me. I've done it for my entire life, right? The technique and how I taught, that's changed a little bit. But it's more of the administration part, how to recruit, how to raise money, how to organize different events and travel and all that good stuff, right? All of that kind of has changed over time, right? Mainly, probably the biggest thing, just because, obviously I got to bring kids into the program. Recruiting's changed a lot. It went from me trying to make kids understand, like, look, I am a high-level thinker, and, like, we are going to, turn this into a powerhouse. Because, again, most people, like you said, they can't see that, right? I'm trying to make them see a vision that I see with my words, and it's not enough, right? So I kind of turn into more caring, right? And showing people like, look, I still care about you. I still give a shit. I'm trying to get you in the right direction of your life. And that's pretty much where I'm at now is, yes, obviously we're going to take over the country. I'm going to make you the best version possible on the wrestling side, but that's a given, right? Every single program in the country, they're going to talk about, how they're going to make you a better athlete, wrestler, whatever, right? But one thing that I experienced in my career, right, is, people don't talk about getting you ready for your life, right? I remember, I went to a big school and no one really talked about my career options or anything like that, right? I'm trying to get my guys ready for their life, right? Because unfortunately, even though we love the sport, the wrestling's going to end at some point, right? So that's been a big thing, is just trying to make sure that I put my guys in a good spot in their life. And of course, showing them that I know a thing or two about wrestling too. A big thing that I've done on the recruiting side too is just get my hands on someone and make them see like, hey, like I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. 'Cause I'm a man of action, right? I think most people are. Me just telling them like, look, I know what the hell I'm doing. Where if I can just show them and wrestle them and make them understand like, look, like it doesn't matter that you're 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 pounds bigger than me. Like I can still, I know what I'm doing, right? It's actually how I got some of our best recruits currently on the roster, is just because I put my hands on them. I showed them, like, look, I know what I'm doing. And not only that, I put my hands on them. I beat them up a little bit, but then we're sitting to the side, and I'm telling them, look, this is what happened, right? Like, I don't know. I guess things kind of just go in slow motion for me, I guess, when it comes down to it. And I can kind of see what they're doing and what I'm doing and all that good stuff, right? But it's funny, though, because, the wrestling community is pretty small. It's pretty big. But I go to these different tournaments and coaching conventions and stuff like that. And, the class that we brought in, it's turning heads, right? And I have these coaches come up to me and they're asking me, like, hey, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, either that or they're getting a hold of some of my assistants that I have now. And they're saying the same thing. You know what I mean? They're asking questions. What's happening? It's kind of like Penn State type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, what's the secret sauce? And I joke around with my guys. It's like, motherfucker, I am the secret sauce. You know what I mean? It's like people, there's no secret, right? I've been here the whole time. And slowly but surely, I've been making a list the last 2 years as far as the people that kind of talked down on me because I was young, I was immature, and, we weren't that good. So that, they kind of showed me some disrespect, right? And I have them on my list, right? I have a little bit of a hit list for myself as far as schools I want to beat. But no, where the program's now, though, it's kind of a combination. Like the first recruiting class, we did a decent job at bringing. There's 3 names that are specific that come to mind, right? A couple times state placers, all that good stuff, state finalists. But this class that we brought in, it's completely different, complete game changer. It's I have a guy that's freaking 3-time undefeated state champ, guy that was 4-time state finalist, guy that's 2-time state finalist, or state champ, sorry. Another guy that's a couple times state placer, state champ. Multiple guys that are transferred in from D1 programs. I think the biggest thing that I did differently was just showing people that, literally showing them that, like, I know wrestling, right? And not just talking about it, right? Being a man of action and showing them, like, look, this is what I know. This is the information that I can share you. These are the kids that we have now. These are the kids that I'm talking to. Let's do it together, right? And that's essentially what happened. Obviously, I had to find the right kids that had that mentality of wanting to build something with me. And again, that's why I'm super grateful for them. But ultimately, they saw the vision finally, and they said, all right, hell yeah, let's do it, right? Which is kind of crazy because it's essentially exactly what happened because, we had a few big names committed, but then in like a week window, right? 1 week time span, there was, the guy that was a 3-time state champ, the guy that was a 4-time state finalist. There's another guy that's kind of under the radar. His redshirting. I'm not even going to say his name. a couple times state placer, had a lot of injuries, but he went out and he won Central Regionals, which is a qualifier to go to Fargo, which Fargo is one of the biggest tournaments in high school. And the kids that he beat, he had to get surgery after winning Central Regional, unfortunately. But some of the guys that he beat went on to All-American at Fargo, right? Which is ridiculous, right? We're talking about guys that are All-American there. They're becoming D1 wrestlers. They're legit, right? He's redshirting for us. He's going to surprise a lot of people next year, right? But it's the cool thing where we're at right now is things are kind of in place for us to be better, even better next year, right? But that week, though, we had all these guys and another D1 transfer commit, boom, 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 right? And that's when people are like, what the hell is going on, right? And now, I mean, everything is exactly what I thought was going to happen, right? Because I was talking to some other coaches at Cleary and whatnot, and they're you can tell that they've brought in D1 kids before and then been disappointed because they're like, oh, okay, cool, right? And then I talked to them a little bit. We're a month in now, so I talked to them. They're like, all right, are the guys what you thought? I was like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I watched them wrestle. I watched film. I know who they were as athletes. I knew who they were, right, before I even brought them in. But the guys are exactly what I thought. If I had to guess, the guys are exactly what the rest of the people in the wrestling community think as well. We just had wrestle-offs. So I kind of have a better idea of what our starting lineup is going to be. Without going too much into it, but I think this season we're going to shock a lot of people, and there's a lot of potential when it comes to Cleary wrestling this year. And years to come, because we're just getting started. This is what a lot of people don't understand. Like, it's been a process for me, but this is only my third season. You know what I mean? I'm 27 years old. I'm just getting started. Get used to it. You know what I mean? Because I'm around. I have family here, right? I love the area. I'm not going anywhere, right? A lot of people come to me and what's going to happen when you see success and then you get offers from some D2s, D1s? Like, honestly, I don't know. Right, like I'm not a selfish man or anything like that. Right, like I don't need a lot. As long as I'm getting paid decently well and I can take care of myself and my family, I'm good. Right, I got some other things going on to help me financially and some other goals for myself. I don't need to be a D1 coach. You know what I mean? I have a big goal for myself. My next big goal, obviously, I want to continue to take over this country. Right, but I want to create a program at some point where I can beat some of the D1 schools in our state. Because, obviously, how's that for a recruiting pitch, right? People can't pull the D1 card on me anymore, right? Because I hear that a lot. But, that's where the program's going. And right now, we're kind of on the 5-year, 10-year plan right now, right? But it's almost like people look for an excuse, right? And they're like, all right, don't worry. He's going to get picked up by someone at some point. He's going to be gone in no time, right? It's like, nah, I don't think I'm going to.
They're hoping for that, but at the end of the day, man, listen, I'm going to say it over and over to you. This is your superpower. This is your authenticity, your passion, your vision. If you go all in on this and refuse to doubt your ability to change the world and the people around you, you're going to create insane things. You're going to have everybody that is, hoping you fail, sitting around waiting, and that day's never going to show up. And people that are wired like that, I've watched countless of them. They'll sink their own ships.
Right.
Because winners focus on winning and losers focus on winners.
Yep.
That's what happens. When losers, being a loser is not your team's record on paper, it's anything like that. It's in your soul. It's who you are. It's you sitting there hoping that this other person fails because, they're starting to shine too bright. No. That's who you are. While they're focusing on you, if you just stay the course and focus on what you got to do, they'll drown themselves, because the more successful you are, the more it's going to drive them insane. The more that you stack victories, and when they said to someone, "Oh, Matt Santos and the program over at Cleary, they're not going to do this, that, and the other thing," and then you are,
right?
there's no more belief required. As it comes to fruition, it's like, this is the reality of what he's doing over there. He's doing something incredible. You can't let those type of people affect you at all. And I don't think you will. You have the same passion and energy that I have. I don't give a shit what anyone in the world wants to say. You're not going to be able to do X, Y, or Z. That in no way makes me believe in the tiniest bit that I have less likelihood of accomplishing X, Y, or Z. Right. That's your opinion. Your opinion doesn't have to be my reality. I'm going to focus on creating the things that I want to create and the people that, we're going to produce. Dude, I am so fired up about this and so excited. I'm telling you right now, a lot of my plans and stuff. A lot of people outwardly don't. We're going to be expanding again next year. I'm trying so hard to buy this building, which is why I think the landlord is upgrading the building as much as humanly possible. He's fixing the curbs. He's going to redo all the parking lot. He's making this place gorgeous. Why? So that I have to pay the highest sticker price possible. I get the plan, but at the end of the day, my landlord's been great to me over the years. I'm trying to go through that, but I'm going to make the statement right now on the podcast. 2025 and moving forward, the Michigan Institute of Athletics Scorpion Fighting System are going to be a primary main sponsor of this man right here in his program. I've wanted to do it for a while. We've discussed a couple things. I'm telling you right now, financially, just in support, dude, how old are you?
27.
I'm 36, man. I'm sitting across from interviewing a man that reminds me exactly of myself at 27. If you would have heard me speak, it's the same way. Like, we might use different words, but it's the same exact energy and belief and conviction. And that's made all the difference, man. I don't find a lot of people like that. I find a lot of people that can get excited by things through a small window, and then the moment that the road gets rocky, their belief shatters. And if your belief shatters, you can't accomplish anything substantial. Belief is a requirement to change your life. It's not an ingredient. It is a requirement. You have to learn to believe in yourself and in your visions and your goals. It comes from deep within when you speak. And that right there, like, you're going to move mountains. There's one other thing I wanted to caution people that listen to this podcast. One thing that Matt and I have said over and over that I want athletes to think about, and people in life, don't set your goals too low. Don't set your goals too low. Like, you should caution yourself when you write goals. Is that actually what you want? If you could have everything you want, if you could make your dream come true, if you could give your family and your community the biggest blessings that you could provide them, what does that actually look like? And don't limit that based on self-image. Don't say, well, I think I would do this. Is that really what you would do? Or is that a limited version of what you're saying that you would want because you don't dare dream big enough to say, you know what I'd really want is to be X, Y, and Z? Because one of the worst things ever is to get to your goals. Very few people will understand that statement. When you get to your goals all the way, you become depressed. Yeah. You lose purpose. You lose passion. You lose focus. You start to be complacent. What I've learned over time, and I would love to hear your input on this, is you have to remember that the man that originally sat down, like, you had to think, when I made those original goal lists, I was like 19 years old. That was so outlandish, out of reach. Why is James Gray from Fowlerville, Michigan, the self-taught martial artist, going to fight in Brazil to represent the United States in anything ever? Why would that happen? It was outlandish. All of those came to reality. What I needed to do was, the man that I was at 19 is not the man that I was at 22, is not the man that I was at 25. You need to reestablish your goals from a stronger belief system, from a, deeper proof within yourself that you have the ability to shape this world, or you and God, or whatever it is. You can be a creator. You can change things permanently. And what you don't want to do is set the bar too low. Like, I would almost caution people, do not be afraid to set the bar too high in your life. But you should be extremely afraid of setting the bar too low in your life.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. One thing you said, my story is exactly an example of having good goals for yourself as far as high goals, low goals. My big goal for going through, my wrestling career, middle school, high school, was just get to school, right? Get to school. I got to Michigan State and was like, fuck, what's next, right? I panicked, you know what I mean? I didn't have that big goal for myself. I didn't have that mentor to tell me, like, dude, like, strive for a national title. Go for it. Why not, right? I was already almost satisfied, right? I was like, all right, cool, I made it. You know what I mean? I'm good. And that's wrong. You know what I mean? I needed someone to give me a good kick in the ass to be like, all right, go get the next thing. Go get the next thing. All right, good job. You did something big compared to what the shit that you've been through. But now what's next, right? I think coaching gave me that mindset back, right? It gave me my next goal, right? Because now I wanted to change this program and get into a good spot, right? Now I want to take over this freaking country and bring home a national title for Livingston County and for Cleary University. And I just shared my next goal, right? After we take over the country, I want to beat some of these D1 schools in the state of Michigan. Because fuck, why not, right? And that's essentially what it comes down to, right? As far as setting a goal for yourself, why not? Honestly, like you said, I don't care what anyone has to say about it, because I'm gonna put the work in. I'm not afraid to be humbled once in a while. You know what I mean? I'll take my bumps and bruises. I'm gonna keep on going forward. I'm gonna keep making adjustments. I'm gonna continue to evolve until I get accomplish what I want to accomplish. Right? Honestly,
That's the secret sauce.
100%.
Remember you said in the beginning, what's the secret sauce? That's it. You should make statements that are almost so grand that someone sitting behind a desk at a D1 program hears that and goes, Cleary University is going to take on a D1 program. Yeah, right. You want people thinking that, because then the moment that starts to come to reality, it's how in the hell did they do that? You know what I mean? And it'll be all the work you did behind the scenes. And your secret is your authenticity and who you are. And when you really realize that statement that I'm telling you right now, but to your soul, you realize, damn, it's my belief. It's who I am. It's the passion that I bring. It's because of what I went through. I am the man that is capable of doing this because of the story that I was given to play out to this point. It's going to be the revelation, and maybe it's already happened, and this is going to come to fruition. And life is like the most incredible gift ever. Like when I was in my 20s, at first I thought I was terrified of getting my 30s, because I'm like, oh man, it's the best days of your life. And for a lot of people it is. My life has gotten better every single year of my life, but I've fixed a lot of these perspectives. I've tapped back more into passion. I've learned from the heartaches. I've learned from the, all of these life experiences in a way that it just makes life so beautiful, man. Like, it's kind of embarrassing to admit, but like, you'll get to a point where you're just so fucking grateful for life in everything that you've gone through, the good or the bad. Some days you'll be rocked by the simplest things. Like I was sitting on my front porch step the other day and just looking out at the property and seeing my little dog, and I was rocked, man. I was like, how did I get here through all the storms and all of the difficulty and all the people that said, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that, and heartache and pain and trauma. And I'm just sitting down going, this life is the most incredible gift we could ever be given. And it is not your good times that you'll deeply value, it's all of your times. Because without those dark times, you could not be the person that you are now. And you would not have the vision, the perspectives, you just wouldn't view life as beautiful. So it's like, as I get older and older, I keep sounding more and more religious, but it really is like, I started to say recently, like, I just like want to thank the universe. Like, I realize I owe an extreme debt to this universe for everything. Not the wins, not the victory, for everything, bro. And all I want is another day, and then another day, and another day. And if I keep stacking those days up and I keep chasing things, I think I'm going to change a lot of people's lives, and I think you're going to do the same. And I think the more that people like us get together and, exchange an energy like this and communicate like this and help other people, man, the magnitude is just going to be substantial. Like, it's going to be registering on the Richter scale. There's earthquakes happening out of Livingston County because of how much of an impact we're going to make. And that's the idea. So anything else you'd like to say on the pod? By the way, we've podcasted for over an hour and a half. We've done a full-length feature film. Nice. Anything else you'd like to say on the podcast, to your team, to the people that believe in you, to the people that trust in you, to the, the Cleary staff that have given you the opportunity, just anything you'd like to say. And then, we're definitely going to do more of these. This is chapter 1 of the Story on the Gray Area podcast. But like, man, I really believe Cleary University under Matt Santos's leadership is going to be something incredible.
Yeah. I mean, first things first, I just want to say thank you to, my guys, everyone at part of the Cleary University Wrestling, because, there's a lot of trust that was put into me. Like I said, it's not until this year that people can actually see the vision. It's been 2 years in the making of me just telling them constantly what we're going to do, right, and what I'm trying to create. But more importantly, AD Max, Vice President Heather, putting their trust in me, a 25-year-old kid coming out of college, and when they have grown-ass men trying to get the job, and they're looking at me like, let's try this one, right? It's a lot of trust, right? And it's just being grateful for them, and I'm still grateful for them, but it's 100% just thank you to that entire group, right? And my last message is for the rest of the country to look out, right? Because Cleary Wrestling's here. And not only that, we got a young team, so we're going to be around for a little bit, and it's going to be fun.
Man, I am so excited. And at the end of the day, as someone like, I have many people that run different divisions of our programs here. You just really hit a nail on the head. I'll take a person that I can trust, that is a good human being, that has vision and passion over anything, over credentials, over what you did in your career, over X, Y, and Z, over, I coached at this school, that school, whatever. You give me a person that is very trustworthy, who's a good human being, who has good foundations in their life, who has that vision and passion and is willing to go all in on things over a consistent period of time, man, they're going to devastate the other people. I don't care what you did in the past. That's the past. If you're living in the past, you're not creating the future the way that you should. That young kid that's coming in all fired up, who might be biting off a little bit more than he can chew initially, he's going to move mountains because he's going to find a way to get it done. And every time you run into a barrier, you're going to learn from that barrier. And then you're going to level up. And it's the pursuit that actually reveals your strength and allows you to make more progress. It's not what victories you stack initially. Because initially you could have been like, oh man, you know what? There's not that much passion. There's not this and that. And it could have killed your heart. It could have made you like, oh man, this is not going the way that I want. I'm not really getting the funding that I want. I don't have this. You never had that energy from the day I met you at Bigby. From the day I met you at Bigby, you've been like, this is what we're going to do. You know what I mean? And that's probably why you fit in so well with me or any of my people around here, is because that's what we believe in. So man, Matt Santos, Cleary University Wrestling. If you don't know, you will. If you don't know, now you know. Man, I'm so excited. Thank you for podcasting with me today.
Thank you.
I can't wait for the future, man. And like I said, starting this next year, no matter what, I'm in the middle of building acquisition or continuing to expand this program. My academy will be a sponsor and supporter of this man right here. So you guys better be on the lookout. I got my Cleary Wrestling schedule. It's going to be up there. I might throw it up on the SFS website. Let's make it happen.
I appreciate it, man.